Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to Sleepy Science Teller. Tonight, we'll wander together into a hidden world, a world that lives not far away, but within us. The unseen passengers, the silent travelers, the hidden parasites living inside the human body. Inside the human body exists a vast landscape, not just of cells and organs, but of life unseen. Some of it helps us, some of it harms us, and some simply exists quietly. Parasites are part of that hidden ecosystem, tiny organisms that depend on us for survival. But unlike our friendly gut bacteria, parasites take more than they give. Before we begin this journey deeper, I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight and what time it is there. You can gently leave your answer in the comments, so together we can see how far this quiet community reaches across the sleeping world. And if you find comfort in these gentle scientific wanderings, please consider liking this video and subscribe. Each new topic brings a calm new journey into the wonders of life and nature. If you close your eyes for a moment and imagine your body, you might picture skin, muscles, bones, perhaps the gentle rhythm of your breath. But beneath that quiet surface lies another world, a world so small, so intricate, that it has existed beside us, within us, since the beginning of life itself. Inside every one of us live countless tiny organisms. Some we know well, like bacteria in our gut, that help us digest food and balance our systems. Others remain more mysterious: fungi, protozoa, and microscopic creatures that make their homes where we least expect. And among them live the quiet passengers we call parasites. They are the hidden inhabitants, the tiny companions that share our internal spaces, sometimes silently coexisting, sometimes causing harm. If we could shrink ourselves down and step into this inner landscape, we'd find a bustling city of life, cells moving like travelers through invisible roads, molecules whispering messages from one tissue to another, and parasites, tiny survivors, weaving quietly among them all. On the surface of the skin, small mites called demodex live near the roots of our hair. You might never feel them, never notice, yet they are there, spending their entire lives nestled within our pores. Each night, they crawl ever so slightly toward the surface, searching for microscopic food, and at dawn, they return to the comfort of their hidden homes. Inside the digestive system, another community thrives, far more diverse and far more ancient. Some are beneficial microbes that help us live, but others are the quiet opportunists. Tiny worms, protozoa, and amoebas that once found shelter in our ancestors' bodies and have never truly left us. For most of history, humans didn't even know they were there. It wasn't until the invention of the microscope that we first peered into a drop of water and saw entire worlds moving within it. That single discovery changed everything. It revealed that our bodies are not solitary vessels of life, but living planets, home to countless unseen species. And among those species, some survive only because of us. They depend on our warmth, our blood, our food, our energy. In return, they teach us lessons about adaptation, survival, and the delicate balance of nature. Parasites are not monsters, though they often sound like ones in stories. They are simply living beings, following the same laws of existence that we do: to grow, to feed, to continue their line. They are reminders that the story of life is not just written in large, visible creatures, but in the tiniest forms that dwell in our shadows. In many ways, these invisible companions make us who we are. Our immune systems learn to fight. Because of them, our bodies evolve boundaries, barriers, defenses, responses, all sculpted by millions of years of cohabitation with microscopic life. So when we imagine ourselves as purely human, we forget the truth. We are not alone, and we never have been. We are living ecosystems, vast, intricate, and shared. Now, imagine this hidden world as a garden. Every garden has its flowers, its weeds, its insects. Some nourish the soil, others take what they need. But all are part of the same system, each playing a role, a balance of giving and taking, creation and decay. Inside us, the same balance exists. Our bodies are vast terrains, with rivers of blood, forests of tissue, and open plains of cellular pathways. In this terrain, every microscopic resident has a place. Some live in peaceful harmony with us. They help digest our meals, produce vitamins, train our immune systems to stay calm. Others are neutral. They take what they need, but do not harm us in return. And then there are the parasites, life forms that tilt the balance slightly in their favor. They are the opportunists of biology. They find comfort in our organs, warmth in our blood, and safety in our internal rhythms. They rarely destroy completely because their own survival depends on ours. Instead, they linger, adapting, evolving, sometimes for years, sometimes for lifetimes. It's a strange relationship, one that humans have often misunderstood. For centuries, we saw parasites as symbols of impurity, of sickness, but from perspective of nature, they are simply one expression of life's creativity. Every ecosystem has consumers and hosts. Every form of life exists in connection to another. When scientists began studying parasites more closely, they found something remarkable. Some parasites can influence entire populations of animals. They shape evolution, alter behaviors, even change ecosystems. For instance, in certain tropical fish, parasites have been observed to change the fish's color, making it more visible to predators. By doing so, the parasite ensures it can move on to its next host, a bird or mammal that eats the fish. It's a small manipulation, but one that ripples through the entire food web. Inside humans, too, there are similar stories. Tiny organisms, invisible to the naked eye, can quietly adjust the rhythm of our bodies. Our immune reactions, our metabolism, even our emotions. They are not always villains. In some rare cases, parasites have been shown to calm overactive immune responses, helping the body avoid certain autoimmune conditions. It's as if in their quiet persistence, they've found a way to teach balance, not through intention, but through evolution. In truth, the boundary between friend and foe is not always sharp. Sometimes the parasite that once caused harm later becomes part of a stable coexistence. And sometimes what we thought was harmless turns dangerous when the balance breaks. This fragile equilibrium between us and our microscopic companions is the hidden poetry of biology. It reminds us that life, at every scale, depends on connection. As night deepens and we reflect on these hidden connections, it becomes easier to sense the unity of it all. The warmth we feel in our skin, the steady heartbeat, the pulse of blood carrying oxygen and nutrients. Within all of it, countless tiny lives move with us. If we could listen closely enough, perhaps we'd hear the soft hum of this microscopic world. Cells communicating, bacteria dividing, parasites shifting slowly through the inner dark. Each movement, a note in the grand symphony of life. When scientists examine the diversity of organisms inside a single human, they discovered something astonishing. The number of non-human cells, bacteria, archaea, fungi, and other microbes, is nearly equal to the number of human cells themselves. That means, in a way, we are only half human. The rest is life that travels with us. Parasites, though fewer in number, represent one of the oldest and most persistent threads in that web. Some of them have followed humanity for thousands of generations. Traces of their existence have been found in the fossilized remains of ancient humans and animals alike. Eggs of intestinal worms have been discovered in mummies preserved for millennia, silent proof that these creatures have walked our evolutionary path with us. Even today, in remote corners of the world, scientists study how human communities and parasites evolve together. They find that in many regions, people's immune systems are subtly tuned by the constant presence of certain worms or protozoa. In those areas, autoimmune diseases are less common, as if the presence of parasites somehow keeps the immune response balanced. It's a strange, delicate relationship, a reminder that not every invader must be seen as evil. Some exist because they fit into the design of life itself. When we think about our bodies this way, as entire ecosystems, not isolated machines, a kind of peace begins to form in the mind. We realize that the small and the large, the seen and the unseen, all belong to the same story. Every breath we take feeds both us and them. Every cell we shed nourishes something smaller still. And every beat of the heart echoes through the layers of life that depend on us just as we depend on them. The invisible companions within us are not merely passengers. They are part of the journey. They have shaped our defenses, influenced our biology, and taught us, in their own quiet way, that to be alive is to be connected. And so, as you rest tonight, perhaps it brings comfort to know that within you a whole world moves in silence, an ancient, intricate universe of life, woven into your very being. If you think of life as a web, every thread connects to another. Every creature, no matter how large or small, exists within this quiet network of dependence. The strong feed on the weak, the small nourish the large, and through it all, energy flows endlessly, recycling itself in ways both visible and unseen. In that endless network, there is one truth. No living being exists alone. From the tallest trees to the tiniest bacteria, everything is joined in relationship. Some of these relationships are harmonious, mutual bonds where both sides benefit. Others are neutral, living side by side, never disturbing each other. And some lean toward one side of the scale, where one thrives while the other quietly endures. That subtle shift is where we find the space between symbiosis and parasitism. Symbiosis means living together. Two or more species sharing life, their fates entwined in some intricate way. There are many forms of symbiosis. Mutualism, where both benefit. Commensalism, where one gains and the other is unaffected. And parasitism, where one takes advantage, drawing life from another. But in nature, these categories are never perfectly clean. What begins as one kind of relationship can evolve into another over time. What was once mutual can turn parasitic, and sometimes what began as harmful may transform into peaceful coexistence. Let's imagine for a moment A tiny fish that swims alongside a shark. It eats small bits of food that drift from the shark's meal. The shark is unharmed, the fish is fed. A simple example of commensalism. But if that same fish begins to nibble on the shark's skin, the balance tips. It's no longer neutral. It becomes parasitic. Now imagine another creature. The cleaner wrasse, a small, brightly colored fish. It swims fearlessly into the mouths of larger fish, picking away parasites and dead tissue. Both benefit. One gets food, the other health and comfort. That is mutualism. But if the cleaner fish grows greedy and begins to bite living flesh instead, the harmony ends, the relationship shifts, and nature quietly redraws a line. This fluidity is what makes life so fascinating. Every interaction in the living world exists on a spectrum. It changes with environment, hunger, time, and evolution. Even inside us, the spectrum plays out every day. The bacteria in our gut, for example, usually live in a state of harmony, feeding on the food we eat while helping us digest it. But if the balance shifts, perhaps after illness or stress or antibiotics, some of those same bacteria can turn harmful. They begin to compete with our cells for nutrients. And what was once a partnership becomes a quiet struggle. Nature doesn't separate good and bad in the way we often do. It only seeks balance. And the line between help and harm is always gently moving. In the human body and across all of life, the border between symbiosis and parasitism is a living, shifting line. There are microbes that once existed peacefully within us, but over generations, they changed, adapting to survive in harsher conditions, finding new ways to feed. And in doing so, they cross that invisible threshold. Take Candida albicans, for instance, a type of fungus that lives quietly on our skin and in our mouths. Most of the time, it causes no harm. It simply exists, feeding gently on dead skin cells, forming part of our body's natural microbial environment. But when our immune system weakens, or the inner balance is disturbed, Candida can shift into an invasive form. It spreads deeper into tissues, causing infection and discomfort. A once neutral companion becomes a parasite. This transformation isn't driven by malice. It's not a choice. It's life responding to opportunity, a shift in the balance of survival. In nature, such transitions happen constantly. What benefits one moment may harm the next. Scientists studying the evolution of microbes have even traced how some bacteria gradually transformed into parasites through a series of tiny genetic changes. A lost ability here, a gained resistance there, and over time, cooperation faded into dependence. One fascinating example lies in Wolbachia, a bacterium that infects many insects. In some species, it manipulates reproduction, ensuring that only infected females pass on their offspring. It sounds sinister, yet in other species, Wolbachia provides benefits, protecting hosts from viral infections. The same organism can be both friend and foe, depending entirely on context. Even within our own cells, traces of ancient partnerships still linger. Mitochondria, the energy factories of our bodies, are believed to have once been independent bacteria. Billions of years ago, they entered into a symbiotic relationship with primitive cells. Those cells offered shelter. The bacteria offered energy. Over time, their bond became permanent. What began as cooperation became inseparable unity. This deep history reminds us that parasitism and symbiosis are not separate stories. They are chapters in the same book, the ongoing tale of how life learns to live together. Sometimes harmony leads to fusion, and sometimes dependence leads to tension. But both emerge from the same force, the will to survive. It's humbling, isn't it, to think that the very organelles keeping us alive today were once independent organisms that chose to stay, to merge, to become part of us forever. The more we learn about life's connections, the more we realize that the universe rarely draws hard lines. It prefers gradients, shades that blend softly from one meaning into another. And so it is with the relationships among living beings. Symbiosis and parasitism are not opposites, but ends of a long, winding spectrum. At one end, perfect cooperation. At the other, quiet exploitation. But in between is where most of life exists, in the soft gray zone, where both sides give and take, win and lose, in rhythms too complex for us to label. Consider the human microbiome again. For every bacterium that helps us, there's another that could harm us, given the right conditions. And yet we depend on both. Their presence shapes our immunity, teaches our cells what danger looks like, and keeps the body alert. In a strange way, even our parasites contribute to who we are. Their presence forces adaptation. Their persistence sharpens resilience. Without them, our immune systems might grow restless, our bodies uncertain about what truly threatens them. Some scientists even propose that our over-sanitized modern lives, with fewer parasites and microbes, have led to an increase in allergies and autoimmune disorders. Deprived of challenge, our immune systems become confused, turning against us instead. It's as if the absence of the enemy creates a vacuum, a longing for balance. And so, the line between symbiosis and parasitism becomes more philosophical than biological. It teaches us that survival is not about victory, but about coexistence. When we gaze at the night sky, we see stars that depend on gravity, planets that depend on suns, and atoms that depend on each other's presence. Nothing in the universe exists alone. Every form of life, human, animal, or microscopic, is part of the same silent dance. Perhaps that's the quiet wisdom of the parasites within us. They remind us that dependence is not always weakness, and that giving and taking are both part of the same eternal rhythm. So the next time we think of parasites as invaders, perhaps we can also see them as reflections, tiny mirrors of life's persistence, its hunger, its need to connect. In the end, the difference between a friend and a parasite may be only a matter of timing, context, and perspective. The line, it seems, was never meant to be straight. It moves gently, endlessly, just like the rhythm of life itself. If we could shrink ourselves down to the size of a single cell and wander across the landscape of our own bodies, we'd find that the human form is not an impenetrable fortress, but a living field filled with doorways, gates, and porous borders. Each breath we take, each sip of water, each bite of food is an invitation, a moment where the outside world touches the inside. To most of us, it feels safe, familiar, ordinary. But to the smallest organisms, to parasites and microscopic travelers, these moments are opportunities, openings, passages into the vast inner world of a human being. From the perspective of a parasite, the human body is like a magnificent planet, warm, nutrient-rich, and full of resources. The challenge is finding a way in. Some parasites ride upon what we eat and drink. They drift silently in droplets of unclean water, or cling to fruits and vegetables grown in soil that has quietly carried their eggs for generations. Others find passage through the bite of an insect, a mosquito, a tick, a tiny fly, each acting as a vehicle for the unseen. And then there are those that wait patiently in the earth itself, their eggs or larvae nestled in the soil, waiting for bare skin, for the warmth of a foot or hand to brush against them. To us, it's a gentle touch of the ground. To them, it's the opening of a new world. It may seem unsettling, but it's also strangely poetic. The smallest forms of life find their way into the largest, and through this quiet exchange, life continues its cycle. In the tropics, where warmth and humidity create perfect conditions, parasites thrive in abundance. Waterborne organisms like Giardia lamblia or Entamoeba histolytica wade in streams and ponds. Invisible to the naked eye, when a human drinks from these sources, the microscopic cysts awaken within the gut, small, round, and armored against stomach acid. Once they reach the intestines, they hatch, multiply, and begin their hidden life inside. Elsewhere on dry land, the story takes different forms. In some parts of the world, tiny worm larvae, called hookworms, rest just beneath the soil surface when bare skin touches the earth, perhaps while walking barefoot. They sense heat, movement, and carbon dioxide. They respond instantly, burrowing softly through the skin, slipping into the bloodstream, and beginning a silent journey through the body's inner rivers. From there, they travel to the lungs, then to the throat, and are swallowed back into the digestive system, completing a perfect loop of life. What seems horrifying on the surface is, in its own way, a masterpiece of biological design. Even the simplest parasite follows patterns older than civilization itself, patterns of survival, migration, and adaptation. They have evolved to read us, to sense our warmth, our breath, our presence. It's easy to forget that these forms of life do not act with cruelty or intent. They simply exist, just as we do, driven by the same invisible force, the will to continue. And so each opening, the mouth, the skin, the lungs, the eyes, becomes both a border and a bridge, a place where two worlds meet, the human and the microscopic, the host and the guest. If we zoom out from the microscopic view and see life on a global scale, we find that parasites are incredible travelers. Their life cycles often involve not one, but many hosts, each a chapter in their long evolutionary story. Take the malaria parasite, Plasmodium, for example. It cannot survive in a human alone. It needs both a mosquito and a human host. When a mosquito bites an infected person, it draws in blood containing Plasmodium cells. Inside the mosquito, these cells transform, maturing in its gut and moving into its salivary glands. Then, when the mosquito bites another person, it passes them along, like a microscopic handoff, from one life to another. What seems random is, in fact, one of the most intricate designs in biology. Every stage of the parasite's development is perfectly timed, perfectly suited to the environment it finds itself in. Other parasites have equally astonishing strategies. The tapeworm, for instance, begins life inside the flesh of an animal, a cow, a pig, or fish. Its eggs are expelled from human hosts and fall into soil or water. There they wait until another creature consumes them. Once inside, they lodge into muscle tissue, resting quietly for weeks, months, even years. When humans eat undercooked meat, the dormant larvae awaken again, anchoring themselves to the walls of the intestine and growing, link by link, into a living chain that may stretch for meters. It's a strange image, but one that reveals how deeply life depends on cycles of exchange. Each stage of parasitic existence is an act of trust or perhaps chance. An egg waiting in the soil depends on the wind, on rain, on footsteps. A larva inside a mosquito depends on a momentary bite. Every success is a small miracle, a rare alignment of life's endless probabilities. And yet, these cycles continue, relentlessly, rhythmically, as they have for millions of years. Even before humans existed, our ancestors and the creatures before them carried their own invisible passengers. There's a quiet humility in realizing this, that long before we built cities, discovered medicines, or even understood what disease was, life had already woven us into these relationships. The human body became not just a vessel for life, but a landscape of opportunity. For others smaller, stranger, and older than we are, it might seem unsettling, but it also tells a deeper story. That life, in all its forms, does not exist in isolation. It moves in cycles, from earth to body, from host to host, from one generation to the next. Every droplet of water, every grain of soil, every insect that hums in the night carries with it a fragment of this ancient dance. Our bodies, though often infiltrated, are far from defenseless. Over time, we have evolved a remarkable network of defenses, both visible and invisible, to guard against these microscopic intruders. Our skin, the body's largest organ, acts as the first barrier. It's thick, layered, and coated with protective oils that keep most parasites away. But where the skin is thin, like around the eyes or under the nails, tiny invaders sometimes find their chance. The next line of defense lies within the immune system. When parasites enter the body, specialized cells immediately detect their unusual shapes, their alien proteins. Signals ripple outward, calling other immune cells into action. It becomes a quiet battle, one that most of us never feel. The body fights invisibly, raising fevers, producing antibodies, deploying armies of white blood cells. And often, without our knowing, the parasites are destroyed before they can ever take hold. But some are masters of disguise. They cloak themselves in molecules that mimic our own tissues. They slip past the guards, settling deep in organs where the immune system rarely ventures. The parasite schistosoma, a type of flatworm, is one such master. It enters through water, tiny larvae swimming until they touch human skin. Once inside, they shed their outer coats and mimic the chemistry of our cells, fooling the body into thinking they belong. For years, they may live quietly, feeding on nutrients, releasing eggs, continuing their life cycle, almost unnoticed. It's both haunting and strangely beautiful, a demonstration of evolution's creativity. For every barrier nature builds, life finds a way around it. And for every adaptation a parasite develops, the host evolves a new defense. This back-and-forth struggle is not a war of hatred, but of equilibrium. Each side shapes the other. Our immune systems grew stronger, because parasites existed. Our biology became more complex, our inner defenses more intelligent, because life demanded it. And so, the story of how parasites enter the human body is not simply a tale of invasion. It's a story of interaction, of gates and guards, of survival and response. From the first human who drank from a river to the person today who walks barefoot in warm soil, these microscopic exchanges have continued, unbroken, unending. Every bite of food, every breath of air, every touch of water connects us to that invisible web of life, in which the parasite is just another thread. To know this is to understand that we are never separate from the natural world. We are porous beings, connected to earth, to water, to the tiniest forms of life, that seek, like us, to endure. Imagine for a moment a creature so small it could rest on the tip of a single eyelash, invisible to the naked eye, yet alive with purpose, with instincts, strategies, and ancient intelligence woven deep into its being. These microscopic invaders, the parasites that dwell unseen within our bodies, have spent millions of years perfecting one thing, survival. When we think of survival, we often imagine strength, size, or speed. But in the microscopic world, survival is not about domination. It's about invisibility, patience, and adaptation. Every parasite that enters a human body faces an extraordinary challenge. It must pass through defenses, find food, reproduce, and avoid detection, all within an environment that is constantly working to destroy it. And yet, they succeed, again and again, across generations, across continents, across the boundaries of species and time. How do they do it? The answer lies in a kind of biological artistry, a dance of deception and design. Let's begin with the simplest tactic, camouflage. Many parasites cloak themselves in molecular disguises, coating their surfaces with proteins that resemble the host's own tissues. This molecular mimicry confuses the immune system, making the invader appear harmless, as though it were part of the self. Take Trypanosoma brucei, the parasite responsible for African sleeping sickness. It moves through the blood, surrounded by immune cells that should recognize and destroy it. But this parasite wears a kind of biological mask, a surface protein coat that it can change at will. When the immune system begins to identify the intruder, the parasite simply sheds its disguise, replacing it with a new one. To the body's defenses, it appears as though the threat has vanished, only to reappear in a different form. This constant shifting of appearance allows Trypanosoma to stay one step ahead of its pursuers, a master of adaptation, living in plain sight. Other parasites take a slower, quieter route. They hide. They retreat into the shadows of our organs, nestling deep within tissues, where immune cells rarely travel. Toxoplasma gondii, a single-celled parasite that often lives within cats, and sometimes within humans, can form cysts in the brain and muscles. Inside these cysts, it remains dormant, invisible, inactive, and yet perfectly alive. It waits, sometimes for years, until conditions change. Perhaps when the host's immune defenses weaken, and then it awakens again, resuming its life cycle as if no time had passed. This ability to pause existence, to become still in the face of danger, is one of nature's most extraordinary tricks. And in a strange way, it mirrors something human, our own instinct to withdraw, to rest, to endure storms by waiting them out. In the world of parasites, waiting is survival, but not all parasites hide or disguise themselves. Some choose to manipulate the very systems that should destroy them. Plasmodium, the parasite that causes malaria, uses red blood cells as its home. These cells, once infected, become sticky, attaching to the walls of blood vessels and avoiding the natural cleansing flow of the spleen, the body's filter for old or damaged cells. By hiding inside the traffic of the bloodstream, Plasmodium transforms the host's own body into a shelter. To us, it may seem cunning, but to the parasite, it's simply nature's rhythm, life finding a way, in whatever form it must. So, as we drift through these microscopic tales, we begin to see a quiet truth that survival, even at the smallest scale, is not about aggression or cruelty. It is about balance, adaptation, and the infinite creativity of life. Each parasite carries within it a blueprint of resilience, and though we often view them as invaders, their existence reminds us of nature's deep and endless capacity for invention in the gentle stillness of the night. If you could peer into the hidden spaces of biology, you might discover something even more astonishing, that some parasites do not merely live inside their hosts. They change them, they alter behavior, influence thoughts, and quietly reshape biology in ways both subtle and profound. Perhaps the most famous of these manipulators is Toxoplasma gondii. When it infects rodents, it performs a kind of neurological magic. Normally, a mouse will flee at the scent of a cat, its deepest, most instinctive fear. But when toxoplasma settles in the mouse's brain, that fear disappears. The mouse becomes strangely attracted to the scent of cats, wandering closer rather than running away. The result is inevitable. The cat eats the mouse, and the parasite returns to the only host, where it can complete its life cycle, the cat's intestines. This astonishing chain of events is not conscious manipulation, not malice or intent. It is chemistry, honed by evolution to perfection. In humans, toxoplasma behaves differently. It rarely causes harm, yet some studies have found that infected individuals may show subtle differences in behavior, a touch more impulsive, a hint more risk-taking. It's as though the parasite's whisper echoes faintly within us, an evolutionary ghost of its influence. Other parasites are no less mysterious. Leucochloridium paradoxum, a parasitic flatworm that lives in snails, causes the snail's eye stalks to pulse with bright colors, green and orange bands that resemble a wriggling caterpillar. Birds, attracted to the movement, peck at the snail, consuming the parasite and allowing it to move on to its next host. Even here, the pattern remains the same. Life using life. To continue the story, there are parasites that alter hormones, that affect appetite, that influence sleep cycles and immune responses. Each of them taps into the host systems, like a musician touching the strings of an instrument, not out of cruelty, but out of a deep evolutionary logic. And in a strange, humbling way, these microscopic manipulators remind us how finely tuned the human body truly is, that such tiny beings can shift our thoughts, our instincts, our emotions, reveals how delicate the machinery of mind and body can be. We are not rigid beings, but fluid ones, permeable, responsive, constantly in quiet conversation with the life around us. It is a teacher, showing us how connected all systems of life truly are. Each interaction, no matter how small or unsettling, reveals a law of nature, that everything living exists in dialogue with everything else. Let's drift even deeper, beyond the visible, beyond the immediate struggle for survival, and into the long, winding story of time itself. For millions of years, parasites and hosts have been locked in a slow, silent dance. Each adaptation by one sparks a countermeasure by the other. This endless back and forth is known as coevolution, a living dialogue written into our DNA. Every new immune defense we develop is an echo of a battle once fought. Every molecule of resistance within a parasite is the mark of its survival through that storm. This exchange, this dance, has shaped not only parasites, but us, our immune systems, our cells, even our genetics carry the fingerprints of countless generations of invisible encounters. It's believed that certain immune genes, such as those in the HLA complex, evolved in response to parasitic threats. Without them, our defenses would be less diverse, less adaptable. So, in a very real sense, the parasites we fear have helped to make us who we are. They have sculpted our biology with every microscopic battle, forging systems of recognition, memory, and repair. And while medicine and hygiene have changed the landscape of this relationship, the echoes of those ancient struggles remain in our bodies, in our evolution, in the quiet intelligence of our cells. To endure, to survive, is the story we share. Whether human or microbe, each form of life carries the same burning thread of persistence, the same desire to continue, to find a way to live. So when we speak of the survival secrets of microscopic invaders, we are also speaking of ourselves. For we, too, are survivors, descendants of hosts who endured, who adapted, who coexisted with the hidden life within. Perhaps that is the most humbling secret of all, that within every living being, there exists not just a single story of survival, but a shared one, a story that stretches back through time, through the smallest of cells, through every unseen exchange that has ever taken place between host and parasite. It is a story of endurance, of connection, of life's quiet brilliance, forever finding a way. If you close your eyes for a moment and let your thoughts drift like soft ripples across water, you might begin to sense how delicately your mind connects to every part of your body, the rhythm of your heart, the chemistry of your gut, the quiet whisper of hormones in your bloodstream. Each plays a role in shaping what you feel, how you think, and even who you are. Now imagine something smaller than sight, a microscopic being, finding its way into that delicate network. It does not shout, it does not tear or destroy. It simply settles in and begins to influence. For most of history, the idea that parasites could affect behavior sounded like superstition. How could something so tiny touch something as vast and personal as the human mind? But slowly, science began to reveal a truth, both unsettling and astonishing, that the mind is not a fortress. It is a garden, open, responsive, and shaped by everything that touches it, even by creatures too small to see. The story begins, once again, with Toxoplasma gondii, a single-celled parasite whose favorite host is the cat. When Toxoplasma infects a rodent, it doesn't merely live in its brain. it changes it. The parasite somehow alters the circuitry that controls fear and attraction. A mouse that once trembled at the scent of a cat now feels a strange curiosity instead. It draws near the very creature it should most avoid. The result, of course, is that the cat eats the mouse, and toxoplasma returns home, completing its elegant, eerie life cycle. But what happens when this same parasite finds its way into humans? We are not its intended hosts, and yet studies suggest it may still have quiet effects. Some research has linked toxoplasma infection to subtle changes in personality, a touch more impulsiveness, a slightly higher tendency toward risk-taking. Drivers with toxoplasma have been shown, on average, to experience more accidents. In others, the parasite may influence mood or reaction speed. None of these effects are dramatic, and science is still cautious, still exploring. But the idea itself is profoundly humbling, that a single microscopic organism can whisper into the language of the brain, nudging feelings, shaping choices, invisible yet present. And toxoplasma is not alone. The rabies virus, though not a parasite in the traditional sense, offers a more dramatic example. When it infects the brain, it alters behavior with terrifying precision. It silences fear, amplifies aggression, and drives the infected animal to bite, ensuring the virus passes on to a new host. It is biology, not evil, but nature's way of ensuring survival. And so, through these stories, we begin to glimpse a strange truth that the mind, that sacred and mysterious thing we call self, is deeply physical. It can be touched, influenced, guided by chemistry and by life forms smaller than dust. The more we learn, the more we see that our behavior, our thoughts, our emotions are not isolated phenomena. They are the result of a long, intricate conversation between our biology and the world around us. Sometimes that conversation includes voices we cannot hear. To understand how parasites can reach into the mind, we must wander softly through the pathways of the brain itself, through its shimmering synapses, its whispering electrical signals, its ocean of chemistry. Every emotion, every decision, every moment of awareness is a symphony of molecules. Neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, and GABA flow through the brain like delicate rivers, carrying the currents of thought and feeling. A parasite, if it wishes to influence its host, need only learn to touch these rivers. And astonishingly, some have done just that. Toxoplasma gondii, for instance, can alter levels of dopamine, a chemical linked to motivation, pleasure, and reward. By subtly shifting dopamine production, it may adjust how an infected host perceives fear and attraction. To the parasite, this means survival. To us, it means a faint but measurable change. In behavior, other parasites work not directly within the brain, but through the immune system. When they enter the body, they spark inflammation, a cascade of chemical messengers that travel even into the nervous system. This inflammation can influence mood, affect sleep, and alter the body's stress response. Some scientists call this the immune-brain connection, a reminder that emotions are not purely mental, but woven from the body's inner signals. There is also the gut-brain axis, the long, winding communication line between the digestive system and the mind. Many parasites live in the gut, where they interact with the trillions of microbes that form our microbiome. This microbiome produces neurotransmitters, regulates hormones, and communicates constantly with the brain. When a parasite disturbs this balance, it can indirectly shift mood and cognition. A subtle imbalance of gut chemistry may translate into anxiety, fatigue, or even changes in decision-making. It is humbling to think that something happening deep in our intestines could echo softly through our emotions. We often imagine the brain as separate, the seat of reason, floating above the body's processes. But in truth, it is deeply entangled with every cell, every heartbeat, every microbe. Even parasites that never touch the brain directly can become participants in this vast physiological symphony. They alter chemistry, shift metabolism, and influence hormones. And through these channels, the mind feels their presence, though it may never know why. So when we consider how parasites influence behavior, it isn't always through control or manipulation. Often, it's through delicate ripples that pass invisibly through the body's networks. A molecule change here, a signal slowed there, and the entire orchestra plays a slightly different tune. It is, in a way, another form of nature's communication. And though it may seem eerie, it also reminds us of the exquisite sensitivity of life, how connected every part of us truly is. There is something quietly profound about realizing that our thoughts are not entirely our own, that within the folds of the brain, beneath the surface of consciousness, there may be influences, chemical, biological, and even parasitic, shaping who we are. It does not mean we lose ourselves. It simply means that self is more complex than we once believed. The idea that behavior can be shaped by invisible forces is both humbling and poetic. It reminds us that we are not isolated minds, floating in a void, but living systems in constant dialogue with the universe of life that surrounds us. Think of it this way. Every breath you take brings millions of particles from the outside world into your lungs. Every meal you eat becomes part of your body, your energy, your thoughts, and every microbe, every unseen organism that lives within you is part of that same ongoing conversation. Some voices are gentle, some are disruptive, some, like parasites, have evolved to play their part in subtle, enduring ways, but all together they form the chorus of existence, a reminder that life is shared, not owned. In recent years, scientists have begun to explore how these invisible influences may even connect to mental health. There is evidence that chronic inflammation caused by parasites or microbes might contribute to conditions like depression or anxiety, not through direct control, but through chemistry, through the quiet shifting of balances within the brain's emotional landscape. It's possible, too, that ancient humans lived in a different mental harmony with their microscopic companions. In a world filled with natural parasites, our immune and nervous systems may have evolved together in balance, each regulating the other. Now, as hygiene and medicine remove many of those old relationships, our inner ecosystem changes again, and we are still learning what that means for the mind. Perhaps this is one of nature's softest lessons, that to understand ourselves, we must look not only inward, but also outward. to the worlds that live within us, and the life that quietly shapes our being. When you think of the mind tonight, think of it not as a single flame, but as a constellation, a collection of lights, each one connected, each one alive with influence. And among those lights, invisible and ancient, are the small, persistent sparks of the hidden life that help make us who we are. If you close your eyes and imagine your body not as solid, but as a vast landscape, a living world of rivers, forests, and plains, you might begin to see what truly happens beneath the skin. In that quiet inner world, there are guardians, countless, tireless watchers, who move through the bloodstream, through tissues and vessels, always listening, always alert. They are the immune cells, a living army made not of metal or muscle, but of intelligence and memory. They sense, communicate, and remember, and though we rarely feel their work, they are the reason we wake each morning still whole. The immune system is not one thing. It is a harmony, a vast network of organs, cells, and chemical signals that together protect the body from whatever should not belong. The story begins in the bone marrow, deep inside our bones, where new immune cells are born every day. Some travel to the thymus, a small organ near the heart, to learn the difference between self and other. There, through intricate biological lessons, they are taught to recognize what is truly part of us and what is foreign, a bacterium, a virus, or a parasite. Those that fail this training are quietly dismantled, for the body knows that a confused offender can become dangerous. The ones that remain become our lifelong protectors. Imagine them now, drifting through your bloodstream, cells shaped like tiny moons, floating silently through crimson rivers. They move with purpose, each able to recognize danger in a way that feels almost sentient. When a parasite enters, perhaps through the skin or the gut, these cells respond in moments. Chemical signals spread like whispers, alerting others nearby. Macrophages, the big eaters, engulf the intruder. T cells coordinate the defense, sending instructions, amplifying the alarm. B cells begin to craft antibodies, complex molecules shaped precisely to lock onto the parasite's surface and mark it for destruction. And all of this happens without a single conscious thought. While we sleep, while we dream, the guardians continue their work. The immune system remembers, too. Each encounter leaves behind a trace, a memory cell, a record of past battles. If the same parasite returns, the body knows immediately what to do. It responds faster, stronger, with greater precision. In a way, your immune system is your autobiography, a record of every invisible encounter you've ever survived. Every cold, every infection, every unseen threat is written into its memory. And yet, for all its power, it is not a weapon of destruction. It is a keeper of balance. Its purpose is not to eliminate life, but to maintain harmony between self and other, between the world within and the world outside. When it works well, we live in peace. When it falters, either by weakness or overreaction, the body suffers from infection or from inflammation. That turns inward, so we begin to see that our health is not a wall that keeps things out, but a conversation, a constant negotiation between our inner world and the life that surrounds us. The immune system is the language in which that conversation is spoken. Let's drift deeper into this dialogue, into the intricate ballet that unfolds every moment, inside every one of us. When a parasite enters the body, it meets not chaos, but a choreography. The immune system does not lash out blindly. It observes, analyzes, and responds with extraordinary precision. It begins with recognition. Tiny receptors on immune cells detect molecules on the parasite surface. These are called antigens, unique chemical patterns that reveal the parasite's identity. Once detected, the body launches a layered defense. First come the innate responses, the ancient fast-acting guards that form the front line. They do not need to know the intruder's name. They simply sense that something is wrong. They release molecules that cause inflammation, heat, swelling, a rush of blood and nutrients to the site of invasion. It's the body's way of creating a controlled storm, a way to isolate and fight the invader. Then, as the hours pass, the adaptive immune system awakens. It learns. It remembers. T cells and B cells work together to mount a specific, tailored attack. For many parasites, this is the beginning of their greatest challenge. They must evade detection, hide within cells, or mimic the body's own chemistry. To survive, some parasites, like schistosoma, cloak themselves in host proteins, making it nearly impossible for immune cells to tell where the parasite ends and the human begins. Others, like Plasmodium, hide inside red blood cells, safe from most immune surveillance. Still others, like Trypanosoma, constantly change their outer surface, so the immune system never truly catches up. This dance, attack, adaptation, defense, can last for years. In chronic infections, a kind of uneasy balance emerges. The parasite learns not to harm its host too much, and the immune system learns to tolerate its presence. It is not peace, but coexistence. In these long struggles, the body's defenses are shaped and refined. Even the failure to fully clear an infection teaches the immune system something new, a lesson in recognition, in regulation, in restraint. Some scientists believe that the immune system's very intelligence comes from this endless practice, that its ability to distinguish danger from safety, to react without destroying itself, is learned through millennia of living alongside parasites. In this way, the parasite becomes a teacher. Its presence sharpens the senses of our defenses, forcing evolution to refine, adapt, and perfect the art of immunity. So while we may see these microscopic invaders as enemies, biology tells a more balanced story. The immune system and the parasite are two sides of a single coin, each shaping the other, each essential to the other's growth. As we drift toward the end of this keynote, let's step back and look at the larger picture, at the strange harmony that emerges when we see the immune system not as a warrior, but as a caretaker. In the modern world, where medicine and hygiene have reduced many parasitic infections, something curious has begun to happen. Our immune systems, accustomed to constant practice, now find themselves with fewer opponents, and in their restlessness, they sometimes turn inward. Allergies, asthma, and certain autoimmune conditions have become more common, the body reacting to harmless substances as though they were threats. This observation has given rise to what scientists call the hygiene hypothesis. the idea that our immune systems evolved in a world filled with microbes and parasites, and that without them, they lose their balance. It's as if the silent defender, once trained to distinguish foe from friend, now struggles to find purpose in a cleaner, more sterile world. But this shift is not only biological, it's philosophical. It invites us to reconsider what defense really means. Perhaps true immunity is not about destroying everything foreign, but about learning when to respond and when to rest. Our immune systems are not soldiers in a constant war. They are gardeners, tending the delicate ecosystems of the body, pruning, nurturing, and keeping balance between the inner and outer worlds. Even in today's medicine, scientists are beginning to explore how certain parasites might actually help restore that balance. Some experiments use harmless parasitic worms to calm autoimmune conditions, as though the body, remembering its old partners, finds peace again in their presence. It's a reminder that our story with these invisible companions is not one of endless battle, but of evolving relationships. We are learning once more that to live well is not to shut the world out, but to live in harmony with it. Inside us, the immune system continues its quiet work, a sentinel of light, always watching, always learning, always maintaining the fragile equilibrium that allows us to live. It is a system born of struggle, refined by time, and guided by wisdom, so deep it seems almost conscious. So tonight, as your body rests, remember that within you, a silent orchestra plays, millions of cells moving in perfect coordination, protecting you, learning from the world, and keeping you whole. It is your oldest ally, your quietest friend, your invisible, eternal defender. Life, after all, has always been built on relationships, predator and prey, host and parasite, bacterium and cell. They are all part of one great system, each shaping the other, each guiding evolution's hand. Parasites are not outsiders to life. They are participants, some of the oldest and most skilled. They teach survival through adaptation, balance through restraint, and transformation through coexistence. In their own strange way, parasites remind us that life is never truly separate. Everything depends on everything else. Deep within our biology, traces of parasitic influence remain, not as threats, but as lessons written in DNA. Genes once used by ancient parasites have become part of us, helping build our immune systems, and even shaping how our cells communicate. Scientists have discovered that a small fraction of a human genome comes from viral and parasitic ancestry, molecular echoes of long-ago invasions that now serve human life. One such gene, derived from an ancient virus, helps form the placenta, the very structure that allows mammals to carry life within them. So, in a quiet and poetic way, we owe part of our ability to create new life to a parasite that once invaded our ancestors. It's humbling, isn't it? The idea that even what we fear can become the foundation of what we cherish. When we look at the natural world through the lens of balance, the boundaries between good and bad begin to blur. What seems harmful in one context may be essential in another. The mosquito that spreads disease is also a vital part of countless ecosystems, food for birds, bats, and fish. The parasitic wasp that terrifies us keeps forests alive by controlling the populations of leaf-eating insects and even the microscopic parasites that live quietly within us may keep our immune systems alert, preventing them from overreacting and turning against the body itself. Nature has no villains, only relationships, constantly changing, constantly balancing. To live in harmony is to see this truth clearly, that life is not a battle to be won, but a dance to be understood. Imagine for a moment if the parasites within us could speak. What might they tell us? About the art of survival? Perhaps they would remind us that success does not always mean domination. Many of the most enduring parasites are not those that kill their hosts, but those that learn to live gently, sustaining their existence without destroying the world they depend upon. They have learned patience, subtlety, and restraint. They thrive through balance, not aggression. And isn't that a lesson for all of us? In our human world, where growth often means consumption and success often means excess, we can look to nature's smallest teachers and see another way. True harmony lies not in taking everything, but in giving enough space for others to live too. In some ancient cultures, parasites were not merely seen as pests. They were viewed as reminders of humility, a symbol that even the strongest life depends on something smaller. The idea was not superstition, but understanding. That power must always be balanced by respect. Today, as we peer through microscopes, mapping genomes and tracing cells, we find that old wisdom again, hidden in the molecular language of life. Some parasites have evolved to help their hosts survive longer, ensuring their own continued existence. Others manipulate behavior in astonishingly precise ways, but never destroy what they need. It's a fragile relationship, a delicate dance, and over millions of years, it has sculpted both parasite and host into what they are today. Humans, too, have evolved, not in isolation, but in constant dialogue with the living world. We are products of cooperation as much as competition. Every cell in our body bears a legacy of symbiosis, a collaboration that began when the first cells absorbed bacteria and turned them into energy-producing mitochondria. Without that ancient act of coexistence, multicellular life would never have existed. In other words, we are all descendants of harmony. When we see parasites through this lens, we no longer see only threat. We see instruction, a living metaphor for how balance sustains existence. Even within human society, the same principle applies. Wherever balance is lost, between nature and consumption, between self and others, between body and mind, something begins to fall ill. Parasites teach us that survival is not about separation, but about relationship. That to live well, we must learn to share space with things we cannot control, and sometimes may never fully understand. As we drift now toward the end of this journey, let's sit quietly with what we've learned. Inside us live countless beings, some helpful, some harmful, some simply existing. And yet, through all of it, we remain whole, alive, beautifully balanced. Perhaps harmony does not mean purity, nor perfection. Perhaps it means coexistence, accepting the light and the shadow, the beauty and the discomfort, the helper and the intruder. The parasites within us are not separate from nature's grand design. They are reminders of how deeply connected everything truly is. In their persistence, we see endurance. In their subtlety, we see intelligence, and in their dependence, we see the quiet truth of all living things, that nothing exists alone. Science, in its deepest sense, is not just a study of what life is, but what it means to live. And when we listen softly enough, even the smallest life has wisdom to share. So, tonight, as your body settles into rest, remember that inside you, countless small lives continue their rhythm, some defending, some feeding, some simply being. Together, they form the living community. That makes you. You are a world within a world, a harmony of countless parts, woven together in one quiet miracle. The parasites, the bacteria, the cells, the consciousness, all are part of the same ancient song, the song of survival, the song of coexistence, the song of life. So as you drift into sleep, release the fear of what is hidden. Embrace the gentle idea that everything, even the unseen, has its place, its purpose, its rhythm in the great cycle of existence. May your body rest in balance tonight. May your mind find peace in the knowing that you are not alone. You are a harmony, ancient, resilient, and beautifully alive. Good night and goodbye.